Hi, everybody. So I was thinking, and I started to receive this channeled message, and I was just reflecting upon the amount of energy and intensity that we bring into certain things, and how there seem to be people or moments in people's lives where they have like more of a subtle quality to them, more of a subtle impact, let's say, in their reality, in their own reality perhaps, and how there are some people who have like a big impact and have a big reflection of their energy in their reality. And this doesn't mean particularly that you are famous or, an influencer or someone who has just come into a status or a place of power. But it actually relates to how you develop the energetics in order to strengthen your projection into the outside space, into the reality. So the projection had to start inside, and it had to become so real inside, or so clear, that it started to ripple and reflect outside. And if I look back on my life and how I have always approached reality, and this happens a lot with starseeds or healers or other people who have like a deep knowing inside that there is no time to lose. It's like this being in a hurry to go out there, to grow, to, like I was thinking about the soul, and the soul is like, even to have legs, to just start walking, like developing to a point where you can actually start to fulfill your mission, fulfill what you came here to do. And we are all fulfilling our missions in a way, because we're all progressively ascending and we're all progressively evolving, right? But there are some, and especially the ones that I refer to here, the ones that I talk to here, and I feel most of the people who are attracted to my channel and to my energy, the teachings that we share there, most of you have this quality of being awakened, of having had an awakening or are awakening. And also a lot of you are healers or starseeds, or have this knowing that you're here to help, to assist the world, to assist humanity, to help others, whether it's your group of friends and your family, or the whole world, in your own way. So for these people, for these souls, let's call it that way, there's this like urgency in a way. It's like, okay, we grounded, we landed, okay, let's go, let's get going with the mission. We came here to do something. And of course, many times we forget, right? We may forget in the beginning why we're here, or we may know it when we're children, and then as we grow up, we start to kind of like take in the reality that is presented by others, rather than perhaps starting to build our own reality. And either way, we're always building our own reality, but there are certain lessons that we need to learn, and there are things that we need to learn also as a collective consciousness that goes way beyond our singularity and why we're here, and that also plays a role in the manifestation of our reality and in the way reality is presented to us and how we are perceived in that reality. So none of this is set in stone, of course. Everything can change, and everything is susceptible to miracles, right? Everything. So when we come into this reality, there's a sense that, okay, let's get going, let's get moving. And many times we have to go through difficult lessons, and we actually start going through these lessons since we're children. And many times the harder the lesson, the more we're able to develop our, the qualities that we need for the rest of our journey, which can be compassion, empathy, understanding of suffering. And of course, the way to understand it is through going through it, right? And also, even if you are already sensitive or empathic by nature, as we grow up, we have to deal with being empathic, with being impacted by others' fields and energies, and either to learn how to regulate that, to develop our own tools, to be able to deal with it in the world, or the opposite. Sometimes we block this when we're little, and then we want our gifts back, and we struggle to kind of like get more clarity or receive these gifts again, let's say, or welcome them back in. And of course, the path is always, no matter what happens, the path will always lead you, your soul will always lead you to yourself, to the depth of who you are. And the spiritual journey is a journey into the depths of you. It is a journey into your own world, into your own reality, into your own perspective of the world. It is a journey that starts even through the physical body, but it goes all the way into, I'm seeing like trillions of billions of light years, and it just goes on and on, right? There is only so much we can see as humans as to where and the depth of the journey. But the one thing that I have seen in students and in fellow healers and in fellow or in teachers, spiritual teachers, the one thing that is always so important or so appreciated in a way by the soul is the capacity to go into the depths of you. To, no matter how slowly you go, no matter how much time you need, but the commitment to go deep and to really understand and to really get the knowledge that you need, to really receive the healing that you need, to really go into the depths, not only of your shadow, which is the first part, but then it's how can I really go deep into my own gifts, into my own, abundance, into my own prosperity, into my own magic. How can I go deep into the core of who I am, into the understanding of my multidimensionality? How can I go beyond my fears, beyond my beliefs? How can I grow from the inside out through the everlasting knowledge of the soul? And the thing with the soul is that the more aware we become of it, so the more aware we become of the fact that we are a soul and that we are divine, that we're embodying the divine, that we have infinite capacity, the more we start identifying with the soul, the less we identify with our ego, right? So the less we identify with identity, the less we identify with who we are, what we have done, our achievements, how many goals we met, where we're from, where we were born, what religion we had or have, or what kind of spirituality we do, what kind of, all of these like specifics and nuances of the personality of the identity. Those things are completely put in the back burner in a way. They just become, of course, a part of the makeup of who you are, a part of the design of your individual self, which is also beautiful, and it's also meaningful if we honor it in that way. But the main identification remains the soul. So when we do that, we are able to tap into gifts, into potentialities, into life perspectives that we hadn't even dreamt about before. But of course, if we are willing to go into the depths of that knowledge, if we are willing to receive divine knowledge, if we are welcoming in divine service, if we're welcoming in our divine mission, we are also going to go through the fire of purification in a way, which is basically just letting go of the things that are no longer fitting into this new version of reality that you just awoke into, that you just received into your field, into your perspective. And that's the part where many people in the journey, they may hesitate, or the students on the spiritual path may not be sure if they're willing to let go of those aspects, because they may be very rooted up, in the self, in that sense of self. And we all go through that, like we all do, and there are always layers to this. But the more you are willing to let the soul guide you and trust in that new reality, and trust in the depth of who you are, trust in the divine side of who you are, the more we're able to do that and surrender our attachment to our identity, to our ego, to our sense of self, to our sense of reality even, which is completely scary, And that is why so many people go and, have the plant medicine and do ayahuasca and peyote and all of these medicines, because basically what they do is that they provide the person with a perspective that is like, the way that I'm seeing it is like if you had, one field, and through the experience of ayahuasca and everything, you're able to contemplate the surrounding fields. So kind of like if a particle would split into two and then split into more. So we're able to perceive other realities that are always part of this reality, but through the use of these medicines, we're able to kind of like perceive it in a more through our physical senses, right? And the majority of people that are not, awakened, or that haven't awakened their gifts, they usually don't encounter these type of experiences that we call, when we have an experience beyond the veil, we have an experience beyond the limit of what we consider our reality. But that by no means does it determine what reality is. That's just our very limited perspective of our own reality, right? So through these ceremonies in plant medicine, of course, it depends on how it's used and many other things, but basically what they are used for and what the original people did and what they still do is to commune and to go into the other realities, to visit these other realities and interact and bring healing and knowledge through the veil, and then bring it back into the body to integrate. So it can be an experience of vision, of healing, of many things. But as everything in this world, what determines, let's say, the quality or the depth of your experience is always your consciousness, your awareness, and where your consciousness is at that moment when you're doing whatever you're doing. When we awaken, we are able to bring consciousness and awareness into everything we do. And that is when our reality starts to shift, because we're still perhaps using the old mold, or we are still in those relationships that we were, but it's like we start feeding them instead of this, let's say it was an electric circuit, instead of a certain power, a certain, how is it called in English? I don't know, like a certain frequency, we start to project a different frequency into that. So when we do that, some of these systems will completely burn out, because and like do a shortcut, and that's how many times we leave old parts of ourselves, old jobs, but even relationships, and many things may just kind of like disappear a little bit from our reality. And we also start to call in different experiences that match the new frequency that we have. And like my teacher always said, we are always the eternal student. No matter how much you advance, no matter how much you think you know, even the fact that you think you know means that you don't know, right? So in a way, we start to tap into our spiritual knowledge and to our intrinsic divine capacity to tap into the soul and to get the answers from the soul, to get the knowledge from the soul. And that's when we start to nurture that growing consciousness within us, and we are able to be led by a higher aspect of us, or by the highest aspect of us that we can reach at that particular moment in time, which would be like the higher soul. And that's when we as humans, of course, we can relax if we want to, because we're kind of like being led by the soul, but we have to go through the places that our soul is leading us to. And sometimes those places are very beautiful and are filled with nurturance and peace and acceptance and love. And sometimes those places are like a roller coaster ride, like sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, sometimes you go into, the underworld, and you start to go through all of this, but there is this element of trust that no matter what, you will make it to the other side. Wherever your soul is taking you, even if it seems like it's the most inhospitable place in the world, know that you will have the knowledge. And if you don't, or you are invited to bring this into your awareness, that the soul will always lead you to where you have to be. So it will also lead you to the other side. And like one of my teachers, when I started in the journey and I got very scared of the things that I was seeing, and basically it was like the collapsing of my old reality and some systems that were there, and the opening again to this magical world where anything was possible. And it sounds maybe wonderful to some it may sound weird, to some it may sound like, you may be a skeptic, which is all normal and natural. But what it meant for me was, oh my God, I have to go back into the time where I wasn't able to sleep at night because I was scared of the energies that I was seeing when I was little. So, of course, I didn't go all the way back there, but I did have to deal with fears from my childhood as an adult, that were preventing me from wanting to develop my gifts further because of the fear. So when we feel fear is always, in a way, the big paralyzer, right? Like we start to feel fear and we freeze. Like even in our physical body, when we feel fear, sometimes, and I don't know if you have seen someone in like shock or a lot of fear, we literally freeze. Like we stop. Like we're not able to move, right? And when that happens, there's only one way to come back out of that. Like there's only, of course, I mean, some people may, develop other mechanisms, like people who, for example, faint or, have a seizure or other things. And this is like a defense mechanism that the body uses in order for the soul to vacate the body, basically, like shut down, like, nope, I'm not dealing with this, shutting down, leaving the body, right? And of course, emotionally, this happens also a lot with people when they are in fear. They get paralyzed, and then sometimes they apply the same technique, basically, of just disappearing, or completely evading the emotional situation or the relationship that they're in, the emotional relationship that they're in. So it's kind of like a very maybe ingrained, maybe also animalistic way of reacting, but it's because it's coming from a fear, and the fear triggers in us survival, right? So we go into survival mode, and if you need to escape in order to survive, you will. If you need to run from the lion, you will. If you need to pass out in order not to experience that, because it's too much for your senses, then you will pass out. So these, of course, are extremes, right? But we all have kind of degrees of that. And fear is one of the most interesting components, I feel, in our humanness, but also one of the most important things to go through and to go beyond when we come into our spiritual awareness and when we start our spiritual awakening, or when we start to develop spiritually as the soul. So when the soul is in control, when the soul is in the driver's seat again, the part of us that will get mostly triggered will be the ego, because the ego was the one who was used to driving, right? So our relationship with the world, how we're seen, all of our fears, all of our security, our sense of control, our sense of importance, our sense of individuality. Who am I in the world? What is my name? What is my title? What do people think about me? How am I perceived? All of those things, which, they're not, like, nothing is good or bad in nature. But when the soul starts to drive the car, the ego gets very triggered. Those parts in us will get very triggered because we will start to feel out of control. in many ways. We will start to feel like we're not in control of our physical reality, for example. And many times we are put through this period where our whole physical reality basically crumbles in order for us to let go and finally surrender to the soul and let the soul drive. And when we surrender to the soul, when we tend to those parts of our ego and we allow our ego to, if you're feeling fear, it's okay, but know that we will make it through. It's like we stop that reaction, or we're able to deal with the reaction that the ego brings, or that our conditioning brings, and all of those parts of ourselves. So instead of completely freezing and going into defensive mode and vacating the body, which we all may do for some time, the important thing here is to be aware of when that happens, what is triggering you, what is the fear, and where is the fear coming from. When we locate the fear, of course the fear will always be somewhere in the ego, somewhere in the personality, somewhere in the beliefs, somewhere in the mental, emotional realm. The soul is love. The soul is pure love, is divinity. When the soul is there and the soul is guiding, there is like an invitation for you to surrender those parts of you that go into stress, shock, defensiveness, etc. And the soul is like always inviting you to continue to surrender further and further and further. And every time you do, you get caught. You like the soul catches you in that. It's like when they tell you, when you're building trust with someone, they do these exercises that one person has to stand behind the other and one falls into the hands of the other. And that is what? An exercise to build trust, right? So trust isn't there beforehand. Trust is built when you actually take the leap, and you leap into the unknown, and you surrender your trust to the unknown, and you surrender to that maybe very, very small part of you that believes that that person is actually going to catch you. And then with time, if you're someone who practices this exercise every day, for example, or you practice it with different people, you will probably get enough proof to know that, yeah, the majority of people catch me. Maybe one doesn't catch you, but you still develop that sense of trust with those individuals that you practice with, or even within yourself. You expanded your capacity to trust someone else with, in this case, with your physical body. So trust is not something that is given. It is something that is also like built and birthed from the inside. And the more we nurture that trust, the more we are able to see the miracles that our soul is guiding us to. We are able to appreciate the ups and downs in the journey that our soul is guiding us through. Even if some of those experiences are very hard, very traumatic, very painful, we are able to see beyond the emotions, the thoughts, what we think, what would be good, what would be ideal, what I want, what I don't want, what I desire, what I don't desire. And we're able to say, you know what? If my soul is guiding me through this, maybe there's something that I need to learn from this. Maybe this is exactly what I need to be living in order for my soul to grow and to develop and to become, more aware of itself. So I become more aware of myself. And as I become more aware of myself and my divine nature, I'm able to also be that mirror and be that light for others. So we start to see the broader planning of things. We start to tap into the unity consciousness, which is I identify as a soul, and as a soul I know that I am everything and I am everyone, and everyone is a part of me and I am a part of everyone, and that bird is a part of me and I am a part of that bird and this tree is a part of me and I am a part of this tree, and we're all connected as one through the universe, through the stars, the trees, the planets. Whatever you can imagine is connected to you, and you're able to be that, and that is you as well. So of course we start to come into this more this broader view of things, of experiencing life, and also of experiencing our own individuality. Now, that doesn't mean that we lose our individuality and that we just become, one with all, and I melt and I die. No, you're still here to fulfill your own destiny as a part of the whole. But when we know that we're part of the whole, we start to heal all of the wounds of separation. We start to heal all of the wounds of abandonment. We start to heal all of the wounds of, making war with others, of seeing others as the enemy. We start to wake up basically to all of these universal laws and universal truths, and we understand and have a bigger perspective of who we actually are, and how our individuality and the fact that we are separated in this realm of existence doesn't at all mean that we are not part of the whole, and that we are not all one too. So it can be very controversial, especially for the mind, because the mind is used to, or at least until now, and how we have evolved as human beings, we are used to seeing reality, like even our eyes, our view of reality, we see it in a very limited perspective, and we have a linear perspective of things, and we have a linear perspective of everything that happens to us. So this also means that our perception of time, space, and many other things, in our own reality are limited. And when we start identifying as the soul, we start to receive a lot more insights. We start to see a lot more possibilities. We start to go beyond that one possibility. And that's all natural to our evolution. And that's all natural to, think about when people thought that the earth was not round, and how as we developed also, all of our ways in which we relate and commune to our reality, we developed better tools to measure things, and we actually came into, let's say, more truthful conclusions. But it is not something that is reached and that's it. And if you talk to any scientist, they will always tell you, we have no idea. Our human perspective and capacity to understand, to digest, to even, intellectualize, like even as we are intellectualizing anything, as we let any sort of energetic information process through the mind, we're already limiting that energetic information because our mind is limited. But there's an aspect of us that is not limited, and that's the soul. So when we awaken, we have the chance to start processing all of the energetic information through the soul, through our higher consciousness, through our divine awareness, through your higher self. You can call it however you want, through your angels, through that aspect of you that is unlimited. And what happens when that aspect of you is the one that is engaging with the energetic information in the world? Miracles happen. That's when you start to see that there are laws that you perhaps always thought that were there that can be completely bent, that they're not even laws, that they actually are principles, and they stand in a completely different way, and they're meant to be there as a resource for us, and how all of reality is actually serving you, and how all of the universe is actually serving each and every one of us to develop ourselves and to develop in our uniqueness at the same time as we develop as a whole consciousness. So, to put it into more simple terms, what happens when we start to receive the energetic information through the soul and the soul's capacity, and we start to measure our own capacity, our own, goals, or whatever you have through the human, through the personality, through the ego, when you filter that through the soul, or when you work together with the soul, the whole perspective, your whole outlook on reality will shift, will change. If your focus is to heal, it will heal. If your focus is to expand, it will expand. If your focus is to develop, it will develop. And if you surrender, that's when all the changes, it's like, it's like the medical teams, they have been waiting all around you, and you were wanting to heal something. And that's the moment where you say, okay, I'm ready to be healed. And then they just come in and they start healing. And of course, the healing part is just the beginning stage, let's say. And it's a very, very important stage, I think, for everyone to, and it's not even just a stage, it's like a continuous support, it's a continuous development and recognition of your true self. So we heal the parts of us that were damaged or that were in pain because they were believing, or they were thinking that they were less than, that they were going to die and that's it, that were scared to death, and scared to die, and scared to leave this world and not leave a footprint, and things like that. Those are all kind of like thoughts that we have when we are coming from a fear-based perspective. And of course, there's a reason to it too, and there's a reason why people have used fear, and humans have used fear in order to manipulate other humans to throughout time, and through also the impact that we had as humanity, and what we have seen that a human is capable of without the awareness of the soul. I mean, if you don't have the awareness of the soul, there's this veil of fear that will be around you. That's why when we awaken, when we start to live with the soul and we let the soul drive, it's like that veil lifts and we start to see things in a clearer way, and we stop identifying with all of our losses and our grief and our pain and everything that we went through. We stop identifying as the victim, we stop identifying as whatever you were, and we actually have an opportunity to start again. We have an opportunity to wipe the slate clean and to go on this journey as a soul with that consciousness. And the more we bring that consciousness into our everyday life, no matter what our personality, our individuality, our ego wants to convince us of, or what the entire world that we live in wants to convince us of, or no matter how many distractions there are, if you are unwavering in your path, if you let the soul guide you, communicate with you every time you need it, if you build that practice, which is the spiritual practice, which is sitting down and being with your soul, communing with your soul. You don't have to be sitting down, by the way. I just said that. But anytime, at any given moment, you can commune with your soul, and you can, everything that happens in your life, you can filter it through the experience of the soul. And the experience of the soul will always have loving words. It will always have good advice. It will always have a different perspective. It will maybe bring about things that you feel in a part of you that they are scary or daunting or like a challenge or challenging. But that's okay, as long as the soul is the one who is taking you through the challenge. You will always feel that support, and you will always receive the tools that you need to go through it. You will receive the spiritual teachings, the teacher. As long as you're willing to do your side, you're willing to commit to do your work. If you need answers, then are you willing to find them? If you want to heal, are you willing to receive healing? If you want love, are you willing to be love? And there are so many things that we start to understand through a different perspective, and that perspective is also ever evolving. And so the nature of our soul is to change. The nature of nature itself is to change. There are cycles, there are moments, there are ebbs and flows to everything. Everything has a divine rhythm, a divine coordination, a divine design, and a divine plan. And when we awaken as the soul, the only thing we need to do is to make sure that we're trusting, to go beyond our fears, to go beyond those moments where we want to freeze and stop everything, and to trust in the soul, to continue to build that trust and build our capacity to know that even if we are faced with adversity or with challenges, that we are meant to do this, that we are meant to go through those challenges, and that we will come out into the other side, we will come into the light. And you will be held by grace and by God, by the divine. Because soul is God. When I say soul, I say God, I say the divine. And if you have the power of everything within you, if you have all the strength, all the energy, when you identify as the soul, no matter what challenge presents, even if you have to convince you're human, even if you need to perhaps develop tools or heal your human side to go along with the journey or to be more comfortable as the journey goes, those are things that are perfect. Those are things that are completely doable. If you're willing to learn and to be guided by the soul is there, which is basically your surrender to your higher self, to your higher nature, and to be and embody your higher nature every day a little more, to integrate that divine aspect of you with your human life and update your human perspective as you update your inner reality and your outer existence. So that was a message for today, guys. I have missed you. I'm so happy to be here again. And if you want to join us on the full moon ceremony that I will be hosting on the 24th, it will be a healing for everyone. We usually have a conversation like this, or a talk. I give a talk like this, or we open up to questions depending on what topic we're addressing, and then we go into healing for that energetic aspect of us, for our soul to integrate what was given, what was said, rather than the mind or another side of us or another aspect of us. So if you want to join me, please do. I will be there, and I'm always here. I love to read your questions, to know how you're doing, what you're going through, and I hope to see you very soon, okay? I love you so much, and you're so brave, so capable, and so beautiful. So please know that.